this manna might. I'm not sure what you own, but this here is on the mark. Like a spiral from a 5-star recruit, we throwing darts, really focused. WD-40 couldn't stop the way we grinded. In the trenches, putting that work in, I relate to all my linemen. This is for the men, the boys do not belong here. Tiptoeing to the top, we doing cone drills. The hottest show in the world, you don't even gotta search. Steady putting in work, you see the sweat up on my shirt. They wasn't aware of us at first, we wasn't on their radar. Now every play that we make, they gon' say, oh, similar to a razor blade, we gon' stay sharp. The news ain't official if it's not on the mark.
What it do? It's Wednesday. You know what time it is. It's the On Your Mark show, live from the Fishbowl Radio Network, powered and sponsored by Epic Sports Apparel. Every play I compete. We got a special guest in the house today. We're going to swing things a little different. Of course, you know, we're in the off season. We talk exposure, recruiting, and things on a regular basis. But this has turned out to be a really good friend of the show, a really good friend to the things that we do over at North Crowley High School. You know, of course, shout out to Coach Gates, my guy over there, Coach Harris, Coach White, and those guys. But behind the scenes, there's a lot that goes on, and we usually don't get the chance to hear this type of story or, you know, winning, supporting a program from this particular perspective. And our guest today is Sam Gates. She is the wife of head coach Ray Gates over at North Crowley High School. And just a little backstory, I met Mrs. Gates probably about a year or so ago at a 7-on-7 tournament over at North Crowley High School. Of course, you know, shout out to DR7, DR Sports. You know, I usually go around the country every year, you know, covering over there. We hosted a tournament over there. Of course, I've been knowing Coach Gates since he was the DC at Cedar Hill, so I'm very familiar with him and see him all the time. But as you know, Coach Gates is a grill master as well, and you know, meeting you know, Sam at back there at the barbecue pit, and we got a chance to talk a little bit about some of the things that she does, not only to support the program, but to support other wives around the state of Texas. And I thought that that was a great story. Of course, you know, on this particular run this year, I would see Miss Gates at every game that I was covering most of the year, saw her at state throughout the year. And always one more week was that mentality every time I talked to her, you know, and we talked about doing this interview over a year ago. But now the time has come to tell her story and just some of the things that she does to support not only Coach Gates, but other wives that go through some of these things that a lot of people don't get a chance to see behind the scenes. You know, when you're very visible, when you want, you know, this is a 6A program, a state championship program, a program that's visible across the country now with the success that North Crowley's had. So I really wanted to get this side of the story perspective told, and I think it's a big thing that maybe a lot of people don't know and talk about is the things that go on behind the scenes. There's always, you know, they say behind every good man is a great woman, and that's the thing that you have to understand. You know, I understand that from my perspective and the things I do. I'm running around doing things, you know, across, you know, 365 days. You know, football doesn't stop for me. So, you know, I understand, you know, that would be another story for, you know, for somebody to pick my wife's brain about what I do, because I'm always constantly doing things. So I can imagine this is turned up tenfold when it comes to a high school coach in 6A program in the state of Texas, a national program. Today's guest, Coach Gates' wife, Sam Gates. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Good afternoon.
Man, appreciate you joining us. Of course, we have been talking about this for a little while, but just a little backdrop for the listeners. Kind of tell your story a little bit. You know, where did you and Coach Gates meet and everything up to this point?
Absolutely, yes. Well, thank you for having me this morning. I'm so glad to be here. And well, Coach Gates and I met in Amarillo. I was raised in Amarillo, Texas, in the Panhandle, and where we actually met is he came into the barber shop with a bunch of his football players to get their hair cut one afternoon, and I actually was in the barber shop as well, getting my boys' hair cut. And it's so interesting that we both have a story. He's probably going to laugh about this because we always say, you tell it, no, you tell it. But as we left the barber shop, my boys were like, Mom, are you okay? And I said, yes, I am. I told him, as I was sitting in the back of the barbershop reading a book, because I'm kind of a book nerd like that, I kept hearing this voice. And finally I was like, what is that? And I put my book down, and I saw Coach Gates getting his haircut in the chair. And so what ended up happening is I realized when I put the book back up, as we met eyes, I was like, whoops, I think he saw me looking at him. So I put the book back up. And kept reading, and then I realized after a few minutes later that I had read the same section of my book multiple times. And then my youngest son came over and he tugged on my shirt and said, hey, Mama, do you like my haircut? And I kind of shook it off and I said, yes, baby, it looks great. And so, of course, we go to leave, and my older son was like, Mom, are you okay? And I said, yes, I know you don't hear me say this often, but that is a very handsome man. And anyway, my boys kind of laughed because we didn't really ever talk about those kind of things. And so fast forward, later that evening, my best friend and I had gone to the block party in downtown Amarillo. And as we're walking, she's like, what's going on with you, girl? You seem different. I was like, I think I met somebody. And she said, you did? I said, well, not really. We just kind of met eyes. And so as we're walking and talking, and I'm filling her in on the barbershop story, I said, oh, my God, there he is. And there he was. And so anyway, we later ended up being introduced to one another. And it took several weeks for us to kind of reconnect. And so anyway, once we finally did, we kind of connected through Facebook and through some mutual friends of ours several weeks later. Kind of started dating and never looked back.
Well, definitely. Shout out again to Coach Gates, man. He always has that open door policy. He extends welcome to the media all the time. You guys are going into your fourth year over there, and the success has been, outstanding. You haven't lost a regular season game. You've won the district title 3 times in a row. Only 2 losses were to playoff teams. And then you finally get the state championship. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But talk about your journey as a coach's wife from that perspective. A lot of times people don't get a chance to see or hear about that. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. Every time, at every game, you're there every week. I see you with, your whole band of people that support the program and you guys as a family over there at North Crowley. So talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I will tell you, I love being a coach's wife, and it is not for the faint of heart. I have the opportunity to mentor lots of women, and not on purpose, but normally they find their way to me, or we've met at the Texas High School Coaches Wives Association convention that happens every year here in Texas. Meet lots of wives and girlfriends, and of course, lots of tears a lot of times for those who are dating or hoping to get into a relationship long-term with their coach. And I'll tell you, you have to really be willing to say less of me and more of them. And I trade off a lot of the things that are important to me because I'm kind of going into his world, for lack of a better term. But I've had to share with my friends and my family that often are like, wait a minute, what about you? What about what you want? And I have to remind them that this is a choice. This is something that I have chosen to not only be his wife, but also to be part of this ministry. My husband's ministry is what he does every day. I don't know if many people know, but his mom is a pastor in South Texas, and she's always saying that he was supposed to preach the gospel. And I told her, this is a different way of doing it, is he's able to minister through his kids. And so I don't believe that God would ever give him a ministry that he wouldn't give me to. And so I am able to be part of that by being part of the team, by being part, getting to know the kids and the parents and then, of course, the wives. And I will tell you, it's not easy because there are some challenges. It's 8 days a week is what I say when you're a football coach. It takes everything. And so there's a lot of sacrifice that you have to be willing to do. But I will say we've moved multiple times, and we'll talk more about that, I think, in the podcast here. But it just takes a lot. I think it takes a lot of prayer. I will tell you that. We pray together a lot. I think that's important. We're both leaders, both in our own way. But one of the things that I had to also remember, and that a lot of people may struggle with, I did too, ladies, but at some point you have to realize that they are the head of our house. and part of that is being willing to submit to the things that are necessary, and then he also allows me to lead on the things that are necessary that I'm stronger in as well. So that's probably the biggest thing that I can say. We're definitely not perfect. We don't really ever fight, but we do have some heated fellowship from time to time. But it's mainly because we're so passionate
Right.
about the things that are important to us, and so it takes a lot.
Absolutely. Heated fellowship. I'm gonna have to start using that when I have heated fellowship. I like that.
It's not
That's
too
a great way
heated,
to
but it's
put it.
warm.
Heated fellowship. I love that. Guest today, Sam Gates, Coach Gates from North Carolina High School. His better half, you know what I'm saying? And from a perspective, you just brought that up. Let's dive into it. A coach's journey doesn't stop at one place, especially in the state of Texas. The first time I got acquainted with Coach Gates, he was the defensive coordinator at Cedar Hill High School. You guys were there for a little while. You made a run to a state title a couple of times. You went to the championship, lost. How do you adjust and move your family? That's a big thing that people don't understand or get a chance to talk about or see, from your perspective. You mentioned support. Those are the type of things that go into it. It tells you your why. Just go into that a little bit.
Absolutely, yes. Well, circling back to where we met Eyes in the barber shop back in Amarillo, Texas, that's kind of where we first started, when we started dating and then ultimately got married. Coach Gates was coaching and teaching at Tascosa High School there in Amarillo, and that is actually my alma mater as well. And our oldest son, Quentin, was going to school there as well. And so we knew that we wanted to move. And so as soon as he graduated high school, we relocated to the Round Rock or Austin, Texas area. My husband took a job there at Cedar Ridge, Round Rock. That was our very first move, and that was very challenging. That was the very first time that I ever lived away from my mom and my siblings. It was a challenge, and so we moved there with our youngest son, Sam. We were there for about 3 years, and I will tell you, we weren't there maybe, I don't even know if we had the U-Haul unloaded whenever I called him crying. And I
Right.
was like, yeah, I don't know if I can do this. I left my mom, my siblings, all of my family. But what was so nice about Coach Ford, who was his head coach then, is that he let him go. He let him just leave, practice, and come home. And we were able to pray about it. We talked about it. And that's what it's made our marriage stronger and stronger, because really we had to realize that we not only had to depend on God, but then that leave and cleave. You leave your family and you cleave to one another. And I think that was probably the first real test to our marriage. And so we were there for about 3 years, and then we picked up and moved to Cedar Hill. And I loved Cedar Hill. I loved our Cedar Hill family. That's Coach Lynn, Coach Harris. And I'll tell you, it's so interesting that we were at the state championship when we actually met them. I was already nudging Ray for us to move to DFW because it was kind of the halfway point between his family in South Texas and mine. And that meant another move. Not only a move for us, but a move for our boy, who was, at the time in the 7th grade. And so that would have been very challenging. But as we sat behind Coach Lynn and I believe Coach Harris, Coach Hafford back in the day, God rest his soul, we were all talking, and I was nudging my husband. He got into conversations with them, and they kind of just got to talking. We sat there all day. They chit-chatted. And before we knew it, they were connected. And it wasn't long after we'd prayed about it, and Coach Lynn reached out to Ray about a job at Cedar Hill. And that was kind of the end of that. So we picked up and moved to Dallas. Let me get a drink. We picked up and moved to Dallas. That was really challenging, excuse me, for me, because Ray and our son Sam moved without me. Kind of get choked up on that one. That was a tough time, because they ended up having to leave and come to the DFW area without me. We hadn't sold our house yet, so I stayed behind and worked at my job there, and of course stayed in our home. And then I commuted back and forth to Cedar Hill every weekend for games, and did that for about 3 months, I think, 2.5, 3 months. And then I finally relocated to my job here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So that was very challenging because I spent a lot of nights after work packing because he was already here. You know,
Right.
he was already here. He was
Right.
committed. And a lot of the wives that are in this profession with their husbands, I hear those stories often, that their husbands, when it's time, they get that contract, they go. So you stay behind, you're doing all of the packing and, you know, putting things together. You know, if they have littles, you know, that's hard too. But that we've done that several times where I did a lot of the packing, and then of course he'd come home when he could, and then of course join me when it was time to get the movers and bring everything together. And so we did that. We were at Cedar Hill for 5 years, and then North Crowley came. Thank you, Lord. That has been a huge blessing to our family when his dream came true for him to be able to lead a team on his own. What you do know about my husband is that he is a leader through
Yes,
and through.
absolutely.
And it was just a blessing to be able to see his dream come to fruition. And so when he got the call for North Crowley, of course, that same thing started happening. Everything started going into motion. It was time for him to switch gears, you know, to leave Cedar Hill and shift gears over to North Crowley. And there was a lot going on. It was our son Sam's senior year there at Cedar Hill. And so we were trying to get ready for him to graduate, shifting gears to begin leading and, you know, getting to know the community and the kids and the program and what he wanted to do and start casting his vision there. And so that a lot happened. So we graduated Sam, moved him to North Crowley. We moved houses to Arlington so that we could be halfway between my commute to North Dallas and where he was driving to Crowley. And it was a lot, especially in his first year. And then now we've since relocated to Burleson, which is about a 10-minute drive for him to get to North Crowley because I work 100% remote now. So that is a blessing for all of us. But it's been challenging, I can tell you, because in that, I have left behind my group of friends. And even though we live in a world that everything is virtual and you can connect with everybody on your phone or virtually, each location that I've been a part of a group. And one of the groups that I belong to is BGR, Black Girls Run. And I connected with a group of ladies at each of those locations that we've lived at. And, of course, I have to move on behind them. So now I'm looking for a new group to run with and new ladies. And while I stay connected with those ladies and we can meet up at runs across DFW, it's not the same as getting up and running with them 3 days a week at 5 a.m.
Right.
And so that's, again, part of the trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things, and that's the reason I wanted to bring you on was to give that perspective because you just don't know what goes into that. Coach Gates is in a high-profile position, and you're right. You know, it's his ministry. You know, anybody that's been around Coach Gates long enough, you know, it's kind of like he's preaching when he's talking. You know, when you have the behind-the-scenes things, when he talks to the kids, when he talks to the program, you know, and you know, he's got that Reverend Ray kind of, persona when he's coaching. So I understand that, and the reason that you do it, your why, you've explained that, and the movement and things. Those are the ups and downs of the profession as you move up through the ranks, and you have to be a backbone for Coach Gates. Talk about that a little bit, and how you've kind of navigated that process.
Absolutely. Again, choice, perspective. You know, I mentioned the boys, you know, that I had whenever I met him in that barber shop and what it meant to become a family. So, of course, you can imagine not only being a leader in my profession, but I was the leader of my family until I met Ray.
Right.
And now he is the leader of our family. And so, you know, that meant that I had to shift my perspective of what that looks like and allowing him to lead. And that's not easy. You know, I'm a strong, independent woman, and I have my own mind. I have my own thoughts. But one of the things about him moving up in the ranks was supporting him in the same way that he supported me. I've held many different positions. I have a director position now, and I have a team of 35 people. And so he knows what it's like, and he has been a great support to me. So it was it was natural for me to turn around and support him. And I can tell you, he would probably tell you, I'm pretty tender. I'm a softie in a lot of ways. I'm a big hugger. I'm a emotional lady in a lot of ways. And I just try to provide that to him because he is a manly man. He's a guy's guy, if you will. And I think that that's what makes us work well, too, is that balance, is he provides a lot of impromptu, just fly by the seat of your pants. Let's get up and go. Let's not think about it. Where I'm the planner, so I think we're kind of a good balance for one another, and so that's been very very helpful to me as well. But I will say that moving up in those positions, from being the position coach to being the defensive coordinator to being a head coach, it is something of great pride for me to just see him grow, not only as a man, but as a husband, as a coach. What he is to these kids, it's such a blessing. He always says it's about more than X's and O's, and that is so true. And the things that he and his team are instilling in these kids, and again, like I said, I know that God would never give him a ministry that he would not give to me also, so I get to be a part of that too, and I get to see how they pour into the kids. And that G6:9, everybody hears it, G6:9, Galatians 6:9, do not become weary in well-doing, for you will reap a harvest if you faint not. And that's, he lives that, he breathes that. It's not something that he rattles off. It is something that's really true, and he believes in investing in these kids. And I get the opportunity to be there. And like you said, you've seen me. You probably don't see Coach Gates too often without seeing me. And I think that's part of being his helpmate, is to try to be there. Even if he isn't paying attention to me, or even if he isn't calling out to me, he knows that I'm there. And if he needs me, I'm there to provide the support if he needs it.
Absolutely. You're right. You guys are conjoined every time that, when it's not like on the field during the season, even post-game, we see you. At the events that you guys are hosting in the off season, we see you. And that's one thing that I wanted to, drive home, is the support part. And that leads me to the next part. And when we got to talking at the beginning, you mentioned how, you guys have set up, or you are involved with an organization that has support for the wives. And it sounds like that needs to be something that's important, being the things, the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys that a wife goes through, or a family goes through, in supporting a head coach, in supporting a coach, that's trying to go up through the ranks, because it's hard. A lot of people that are not, really privy to seeing these things, going from a position coach, going to the coordinator, going to a head coach, those are steps in evolution within a profession. You have to understand what support means when it goes through that. Talk about the organization you're involved with, and the mentorship part of it that you guys try to drive home with that.
Absolutely. Well, the very first group that I ever become a part of, and am very involved in, is the THSCWA, which is the Texas High School Coaches Wives Association. Love being a part of that. They host a giant convention every year that is partnered with the Texas High School Coaches Association, and we all descend upon San Antonio or Houston, wherever it might be. And while the coaches shift gears and go to what they're doing, we have our own convention, and it's awesome. We have, various speakers. We've had some refs come in and teach us, what plays they're calling, so that we all are kind of in the know. And, of course, we've also had UIL. We've had all different types of folks that come in and lead there. And that's where I've forged a lot of relationships with different ladies. And that's kind of where the mentorship has come in. You kind of migrate to different people, or maybe attract younger ladies that are struggling, or maybe questions are asked in the sessions that we're in, and then you find yourself kind of out in the hallways, or even in the restrooms, or at lunch, asking questions. We also have a Bible study that's hosted there, that everyone has opportunity to share their hearts about the things that they're facing as a coach's wife, and asking for how did you handle this? Or what happened whenever your husband moved 10 times? Or, how did you pack? Or, we have little kids and I don't ever see him. How do you do it? There's a lot of things that happen not only in those rooms, but also on the website. And, the beautiful thing about it is you have the opportunity to post anonymously. So when people have questions that they really are seeking answers to, but they just don't want to, maybe put their business out on the street, they're able to do that. Another group that I'm also part of is called Life with Coach, and it's a group of ladies very similar. A lot of them are also members of the Texas High School Coaches Wives, but we just support each other, with various different things that happen. And then a personal group that I helped to put together, and that's some friends of mine, and I, Coach Harris's wife, Val Harris, as well as Antoinette Lynn, Coach Lynn's wife, and it's a group that we started, and it's called BW SOC, and it's Black women supporting our coaches. And it's a group that, again, we come together and we share. We meet, we try to meet once a quarter in person when we can and have lunch or brunch, but we also have a group chat where we are cheering on one another. We are cheering on each other because when our coaches get new jobs, whenever they get new opportunities, we are there to support each other. When somebody's husband is going in to interview for a job, we come together and we lift them up in prayer, asking God, that if this is their job, it is so, and it's just a great opportunity for us to come together and, again, share in things that are so important to us with other ladies that look like us, and that also maybe share in the same type of struggles or things that we all face.
Absolutely, man. Great guest today, guys. Sam Gates, head coach, Ray Gates' wife from North Crowley High School, is the guest today, and it's been a great conversation. A long time coming. Man, I want to shout out to some of the guys that are tuning in today. Shout out to my guy Jay Pace. Shout out to Top Texas Prospects, R.L. Martin down in San Antonio, J Mac from the Dub. Appreciate you guys tuning in, man. Share this, subscribe to the On Your Mark Show YouTube channel as well. Now let's dive into this year. This has been a wonderful year for you guys that resulted in a state championship for North Crowley. Congratulations on that. But talk about the season as a whole from your perspective. I would see you at all of the games. I know that it can be highly stressful because this is a lot on the table. When you have a lot of eyes on you, you guys are in the limelight constantly. But every time that we talk, we say we'll see each other next week, or we're going to state, or I see you at state, and it came to fruition. And to get at the pinnacle, this is the pinnacle of high school football in the state of Texas. That's something that not everybody gets to experience. Talk about that journey this year.
Absolutely. I tell you, it was magical. It was such a What'd you say?
I was just laughing. You said magical. I understand it. I understand.
Absolutely. It's hard to describe, to tell you, but it's kind of like building this layer, just to see him come in that very first year and, just begin immersing himself not only in the program and with the kids and their families, but with the entire community, having the love and the support of all of 817. I tell you, it is just indescribable to see all of those who just wanted to be part of this amazing thing that was going on and that was being born out at North Crowley. And I'll tell you, it was so exciting. And, I remember every game. I remember all the playoffs, our very first year when we lost in the third round, and then the second year when we played Duncanville. And my father-in-law, I think there was an interview with him at state this year where he said he knew right after that game that we would be back and that we were going to come back and beat Duncanville. And I believe that as well. I think we all that, for the kids at North Crowley, that was where the place that they wanted to go, that was who they needed to beat in order to get to state. And I think it was just on all of our hearts and all of our minds. That was the prayers that we were sending up. And it wasn't just that we wanted to beat them. We believed that we would. We believe that we will win. Like we already knew it. And I think that's what it was. And just to see the passion, not just in my husband and in the kids, but in all of his coaches. His coaching staff is amazing.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, shout out shout out to my girls, my Glam Squad, their wives, who also support. I think that we all there was this, I can't even hardly describe this feeling, this energy, this synergy that was in the atmosphere. And I felt like that the whole community just knew what was going to happen. We were just waiting. All we needed was for December to get here so we could just get on the field and do our thing.
Absolutely. I mean, and you did your thing. I think it's one of those things where it's you can see it in the cards, and I think for me, I think the culmination to see the satisfaction on Coach Gates' face and his emotions coming out at the end. Coach Harris, Coach White, and Coach Reinhardt, who's now shout out to Coach Reinhardt, who's at Huddle now. Seeing those guys,
Yeah.
you guys getting there 3 years ago and it coming to, you can kind of see it building. And I think, this is a conversation that we'll have with Coach Gates when he comes on the show. I think you can see the steps of building him from having the experience at Cedar Hill, knowing what championship level football looks like from his experience in there, and coming out and building, like you said, building blocks, steps. It's levels to it. You have to go through the Prospers. You have to go through the Duncanvilles, and you have to finally go, on your own journey to get there. And you guys did it, in front of everybody in the state of Texas. And I think that's what the culmination of it is. But, the work is not done yet. It's a new season, new spring coming up, and I know that they're working hard over there, at North Crowley to get back to that. But how do you cope with, football? Are you a football fan? Do you love the sport? Talk about how you, integrate yourself into football as a game.
Absolutely. And I will answer that, but I want to just piggyback on what you said for a minute. Huge congratulations to Coach Eli Reinhardt.
Yes.
I could not be
Absolutely.
more proud of him. Such a unique, neat guy, and
Absolutely.
really excited for him and Rebecca moving up there to Hutto. As far as football, absolutely. I am a football fan. I come from a football family. We are diehard Dallas Cowboys fans, and we will, DC for life, we will keep the hope alive that they will do what they need to do. And then, of course, Texas Longhorns. And when I say we're a football family, like my brothers are in full-on Cowboys gear every game. Even
Right.
my mom rocks a jersey every Cowboys game.
Right.
And so, yes, I do come from a football family. Our boys played football from flag all the way up, and so it was just natural. And of course, being married into it was a completely different thing. It's
Right.
a lot different when you're actually behind the scenes and you don't just get to go home when the game's over and go eat and take your kids. But also something that's also very near and dear to my heart is one of my most precious people on this planet in my life is my father-in-law. And he has been reffing for years. I want to say it's 40 years. Papa Doug, forgive me if I get it wrong, but it's in the family. And then Ray's Uncle Lynn is also a white hat, for the Austin chapter. So football is really it's just kind of part of what we do. It's in all conversations. It's at every holiday. We just kind of eat, sleep, and breathe it.
Absolutely. Well, you have to be invested to be rooted in it like that. And, showing up for practices, showing up for off season, showing up for the games each week, you have to be embedded into that, or embedded into it. It has to be in your DNA, so to speak. And I think that's one reason that, it takes a village. Coach Gates has that village starting with you at home.
Absolutely, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, but before I let you go, if you had a message to, a coach's wife, or, a lady or family that's getting into coaching with a young coach, what is the best advice you can give to a young wife that's just, beginning at this point from your perspective?
Oh, I love that question. And I'll tell you one of the things that we laugh about often, and that is, as the first lady, as they often call me, I get the opportunity to interact with all of the coaches every summer before we're rolling into the season. And, of course, I always have a list of the husbands, the coaches and the coaches' wives. But then all of our younger coaches, or our coaches who are unmarried, they know I'm coming down their aisle. I'm coming down their row, and I'm going to say, hey, buddy, you got somebody to go on my list this year? And it's so funny. When we first started out, we had several of them that were like, oh, no, they didn't want anything to do with my list. And then over the last several years, it's so sweet whenever I see that they finally are excited to add somebody to my list, because they know if I get a hold of them, they are going to sit with us. They're going to be part of this crew. They're going to see what it's like. And I tell them, if there is somebody that you are serious about, you are doing them a disservice if you don't allow them to be with us, because they need to see what it's like. They need to see what it's like to be in the stands. They need to understand what it's like to support you in the position that you're in. And I have to say, we have several coaches that just recently got engaged or got married. Shout out to Coach Knapp. He and Alyssa just got engaged, and I'm really excited, because she made my list this year, and I was able to add her to the Glam Squad. We call ourselves, and we are the Friday Night Glam Squad for North Crowley. And of course, we have our shirts. We support each other, and we support our husbands. And so that's the biggest thing that I could say, is that they need to see what it's like, because there is a lot of sacrifice on your part, and it has to be a choice that you're willing to make. And so if anything, I would say, if you're young girlfriend or early wives, if you've already made it into the wife status and you haven't had a chance to see what it's like, you need to brace yourself, because, again, it's 8 days a week. There's going to be a lot of times that they're not home for dinner. They may miss your kids' games sometimes. And it really is a sacrifice for them to be able to pour in and give what they need to the program. But in the long run, I can tell you, if your husband is aspiring to be a head coach like mine did, it changes when they get there, because now he's able to make those decisions. And, his coaches don't miss their kids' games. He makes allowances for that, for them to be able to get there, because they're able to make up their work and do what they need to do, because family is so important. And if you don't have a family, and your family's not in good shape, it's really going to impact their ability to come to work and do a good job for these kids. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Sam, I appreciate you coming on today. I know we've been talking about this for over a year. And you hit a home run out of the park. That's the message that we wanted to get across, and show a different perspective. I think that not a lot of light gets shined. Of course, we see, the powerful coaches in the state of Texas. At the South Lakes, Coach Riley Dodge, Coach Todd, Coach, at DeSoto, Coach Mathis, and those guys. But there's always support behind it. And that's the reason I wanted you to come on and kind of give the listeners your story and just the backdrop of the support system. And with it culminating in the state title, it just kind of fell into the right motion to get that done. But man, I appreciate you. I'm pretty sure I'll see you soon in a few weeks when spring ball starts to come around, or at a 7-on-7 tournament, back there with Coach Gates on the grill. So man, I appreciate you giving us some time. And always supporting, always being friendly, and always, for the media, that means a lot to us guys when we come around.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. God bless you, Mark.
Absolutely. We appreciate it, man. That's Sam Gates from North Crowley High School. Coach Gates, head coach, Coach Gates at North Crowley, his wife on today. But before we get out of here a little bit, hey, it's the off season, guys. What are you doing to get yourself prepared? We talk about this week to week. In the off season, what are you doing to get yourself there, to get that exposure? Of course, are you training at your position? Are you training, with your school? Are you running track? Got skilled guys? That's a no-brainer. We talk about these things every week. You should be on the track, doing something to help yourself get more exposure to. Everybody wants to play at the next level. And remember, guys, it's less than 10% of high school players that play at the next level. It's more about 7, or maybe between 7 and 8%. So what about you is special? You have to make that known. Make sure you're using social media properly to get this done. If you have Twitter, make sure you're hiding weights on there, where you go to school. Preferably something with your name in it, whether it's Josh Jenkins 12, your number. It's very hard to find, for guys, from what I do as a perspective, let's say, we're on a Friday night, this is our first interaction, you're bubbling, you do great, and it's hard to find your Twitter if it's something that's not pertaining to you. It could be pertaining to your school, your birthday, but something like that. Make sure you have your height and weight, where you go to school, your class. Your first pinned tweet should be your film. I'm going over this because I had a question in the DMs this morning. Is what do I need to do? Can you help me with the recruiting process? These are some of the things that you should be inherently doing on your own, besides getting out in front of the right coaches and the right people that can see your talent. You have to be able to self-promote yourself. Those are some just small snippets of things that we talk about each week. You can go to the On Your Mark Show YouTube channel. The guests that we bring on, especially in the off season, are specifically geared to help you with exposure. If this is the first time you guys are tuning in, or first time you've seen or interacting with me, a little bit about me is, I am a scout that goes around the country scouting and writing about players in the state of Texas during the season. You can see me on the sideline all the way through the state title in December. So, this is 365 for me. I go out to camps. I go out to workouts, all of these type of things. People bring me out to see their kids. And early identification is one of those things. Guys, parents, players, if you're watching this, the earlier you start, it's one of those things. Here's a pet peeve, and I'll give you a little nugget. If you're in the 7th grade now, let's say, I would even go say 6th grade, and you're a very good player, it's in your best interest to have a Twitter. And we're talking about a Twitter for athletic purposes, for exposure in that realm. We're not talking about something, like TikTok or things like that for social media purposes and that purpose. What we're talking about is to build your exposure. This is how you get invited to exposure camps. People get a chance to see you. These guys that are doing this now, you're seeing guys in the 2029 class, 2030, even the last couple of weeks, are getting college offers now. Now, it's not an offer where they can commit and go to school yet, but it's the introduction that puts you on the map with those particular coaches. That means that they see something in you early that shows traits that you can play at the next level. So, in order to do that, you have to make yourself available exposure-wise. I kind of just went over how to create that Twitter. If you're in, let's say you're in a kid that's in a DFW, it should be guys you should be, following or, tagging guys like myself that are in the sports media so that we can see you. You have to know who those guys are, parents, players, make an introduction. It's not very hard. And, I'll tell you a little bit about me. And, anybody that reaches out, usually I respond back within 24 hours, if it's the first time we're interacting. And the more and more I see you, the more and more, it's an opportunity for us to help you with that exposure. I'll go over this real quick. I got a DM from a kid this week. He's wanted to know if I could write about him. Well, here's the thing. I don't just write to be writing. So the first things first is we have to kind of make an introduction. I have to see you in person, or see you at an event, or see you, at a camp, or see you play live and watch your film. It's threefolds. That's the kind of things that goes on to, me putting pen to paper. I don't just write about people just to be writing about it. So it has to be something, you have to do something well. And even young guys, and I've seen 5th and 6th graders that have a special trait about them early, that something that translates to where it'll move the needle as far as getting a write-up. I don't think that everybody understands what goes into someone writing about you. It's not just to be writing about somebody just for fun, or, we take these things seriously. And I'm speaking about the writers and the media guys that I know, that I convene with, that I run it with. We do this for a reason. It's to help kids with exposure. It's all about the kids. I don't get any accolades or anything out of that particular, write-up. I want to do it because you did something and people should know about it. College coaches should know about it. When I write about something, it's to write about what you do well, so that a college coach may run across it, or, that can help you there. It's not about just to put out things just, cause say, oh, Mark Henry did it. I don't need to do things like that. And it may sound like this is a rant, but these are the type of questions and stuff that comes across my DMs on a weekly or daily basis. And I just want to be able to help, kids that have those questions that need to be answered as far as getting exposure. And we're going to be here every week. So if you're tuning into the On Your Mark Show, you're going to get the game from one of our guests, from myself. Shout out to Coach Jay, Epic Sports Apparel CEO. Follow College Recruiting 101 on Facebook. There's a lot of nuggets that we drop in there on a weekly, daily basis. The camps are coming up. We drop that in there. I'll make a post later on today again with all of the links to those camps. So, guys, it's pertinent that you get this. It's important that you get these things done in order to get it out. You know what I mean? And I apologize for getting a little tie-tongue there, but these are the type of questions that we have week to week in my DMs. In the guys that I talk to, we talk about recruiting and exposure on a weekly basis, and these are the type of things that you have to do to get that. So, it's one of those things where you should be working on something every day. Parents, and there's a lot of parents that, I talk to that are doing it the correct way. You have to push the envelope a little bit in order to get your athlete, he or she, out there. And it's not just the guys, the girls too. Basketball, softball, volleyball. Now girls flag football is bubbling. Everybody in the Metroplex, everybody in the state of Texas is starting to come around. We had a guest a couple of weeks ago from the state of Florida. Girls flag football is coming, and it's starting to bubble. So it's one of those things where the girls are going to be starting to get that exposure because they can go and play college flag football now, get scholarships, and go get their education. So, but that's all the time we got for you today. I just wanted to go over that a little bit because, I get these type of questions on a weekly basis about what I should do, how do I get my recruiting started, the recruiting process. And listen, we give you the blueprint. Shout out to my guy, Coach Jay, again, the recruiting blueprint. It's on Amazon, it's on Apple, it's at Barnes & Nobles. Get that, guys. You know what I'm saying? It's going to help you in the long run. And Coach Jay has been at the forefront of one of those guys that's been helping kids for a long time, not just now, but for a long time, getting to college. And now you're seeing some of these guys get drafted as well. At the scouting combine this week, kids that we covered in high school are now going on to the NFL. So it's a blueprint. You have to be special at something you do in order to get that exposure, to get a college to notice you. But we'll be back next week with another guest, great guest. Shout out to Sam Gates today for coming on and giving us a little time. Shout out to my guy, Coach Ray Gates over at North Crowley as well. Coach Harris, I'm going to be tying him down in a little bit to come on. We talked a few weeks ago. So lots of great guests. Type in every week from the Fishbowl Radio Network at 11 o'clock right here. The On Your Mark Show, powered and sponsored by Epic Sports Apparel. We out.
Hey, this Manna Mike. I'm not sure what you own, but this here is on the mark. Like a spiral from a 5-star recruit, we throwing darts, really focused. WD-40 couldn't stop the way we grinded. In the trenches, putting that work in, I relate to all my linemen. This is for the men, the boys do not belong here. Tiptoeing to the top, we doing cone drills. The hottest show in the world, you don't even gotta search. Steady putting in work, you see the sweat up on my shirt. They wasn't aware of us at first, we wasn't on their radar. Now every play that we make, they gon' say, similar to a razor blade, we gon' stay sharp. The news ain't official if it's not on the mark.